Hey, everybody, what's up? It is Wednesday night. That means Xbox Nation night, as always. And I can promise you a very special show because we've got a very special guest, world renowned guest, really, really cool person. Who was nice enough to join us on the panel today. Don't worry, guys. Mooch will be here. He's not the guest, but he's running a little bit behind. You know, the crazy New York weather, even though he's always telling me how crazy Florida is and how crazy I am to live here. You know, he's the one that gets stuck in the snowstorm and can't get here on time. Today, on the today of all days, man, when I've got an incredible guest, which I want to make sure you guys give us a warm welcome to the one and only Brad Sams. Thank you, Mr. Sams, for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking out your busy schedule and some time for us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Well, first off, you reached out to me, so this was great.
Well, yeah. Originally, you had DM'd me though, and you were like, or you messaged me in January, and you were like, "Hey, man, like I like your stuff. If you ever want me to be on a podcast, please, please let me know." And I was like, "Hey, that's great." And especially now with all the rumors, I thought it was perfect time to get you on here. So we really do appreciate that.
Yeah, no, this should be a good time. I mean, there's so much going on right now. And as we were talking just briefly, we're starting to see Phil Spencer's his plan, because you got to remember, like when you take over day one, you're not turning the ship that day. Like we're really starting to see his vision for what the Xbox brand should be. It's starting to materialize right now, and we're fitting all those pieces together.
Yeah. And we're going to touch on that a lot more as we go along. Let me also introduce Salty. What's up, Salty? How you doing, man?
Hey, we got no snow here in Arizona, thank goodness. But yeah, I got my coffee ready and we're ready to roll, man. Let's do it.
Got the coffee.
Yeah, the coffee.
Absolutely. And we also got Foxy. She's back here. Welcome, Foxy. How you doing?
Hola, I'm really good. Happy surprises, and I have my Red Bull because what happened? Salty, you left yours behind, so I got one for you. So don't worry. What's up, chat?
Exactly. And we also got Xbot 448. He's back. He was a little bit late, but he's here. How's it going, Xbot?
Yeah, what's going on, bro? For some reason, that I was in Hangout limbo. Like I didn't know where everybody else was. I clicked the link, but I was in a Hangout by myself. But yo, brother,
invisible, and we got him. We got him, guys.
We got an awesome guest here, so I'm gonna say this a little more formally. My good sir, Crap. Do you know what day it is?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day.
Hey, it's also Xbox Nation Day. PMS Jordan. She says I'm pro consumer, so here's some of my exclusive money. She is very, very vocal about this. A lot of people. Yeah, kind of split with this stuff.
Hey, Crap, I think you can use that money on the Switch too, by the way.
Oh, I probably could. But, so Brad, there's a lot of people that obviously there's a lot of news coming out and stuff like that. I think one of the first things that I want to start off with you is this Xbox Maverick discless console. Is that still a thing? Are we still expecting to see that at some point? Is it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've seen it before, so this isn't some like vaporware thing. And there, you got to take a step back too. Like when somebody, it doesn't matter if it's me, if it's Jez, if it's anybody. The one thing you can tell if a rumor is typically on the mark or not is if somebody comes out with it and then a pile on stories, as we typically call them, happen. And a lot of people, and myself included, you sit on a lot of information because you don't want to be the first, because sometimes it's tough. Well, I shouldn't say you don't want to be. You always want to be first, but you don't want to be first and wrong, because that's a bad thing. Yeah. And so I came out with this, and Jez like, yeah, man, I've been hearing all about this thing. Other people are talking about it. It's still happening. And I honestly don't think the console is so much important as this strategy to be able to take your discs and turn them into digital games. To me, that is like a much bigger thing, because I got a stack of old Xbox games, and I am waiting to be able to walk into a Microsoft store and just hand them over. Just the discs, by the way. You don't have to give them the case or anything. And then they just, they load up all those games on your Xbox account, and I can get rid of all that old plastic.
Now, is that going to be just the Microsoft store, or do you think they're going to offer that other places as well?
So I believe they're going to offer that at other places as well. It may not be on day one, though. Like Microsoft stores make sense, right? They own that. I've heard Best Buy is in there. I would have to think that GameStop is in there somehow, although this is like slapping GameStop in the face, because you're walking in there and be like, take all my old plastic, and then like they know you're never coming back in.
Yeah.
Well, that's if they're still around as well. So
Right. Yeah, they just tried to sell themselves, and literally nobody will buy GameStop.
Yeah.
So they got their own challenges. And I wish
Mhm.
them the best. I mean, you know, I've spent some money there over the years, but
Yeah. Because I remember you doing this, and I kind of covered this after you did it, and I remember Jez was talking to me a little bit about it too. So is that going to be something that comes out this year, you think?
oh yeah, like I actually think it'll happen this spring. I was told before E3. Now I don't understand why they would do it before E3, but I have heard that it's before E3 and that the Maverick consoles are already being built as of right now.
Okay.
So yeah, so hopefully here it's soon.
All right. And now, like you're, pretty smart guy and stuff like that. Where do you see the like consumerism part of this, where you'll have all these different options for these consoles? Do you find that might be confusing to some consumers, or will Microsoft have a plan for this? Because to me, like you're going to have like a diskless version, right? This is going to be an S, right?
Right. So
Okay. And then you're going to have an S that has a disk drive, and then X, and then you're going to have what in a couple years or less, in 2020, you're going to have two versions of the next gen hardware. So like how
Yep.
many different versions are they? Where do you see that landing?
So I think, and this is my theory on this stuff, is that Phil Spencer knows exactly what he is doing. And here's my theory on this. Educating the consumer is a very expensive thing to do. From a marketing perspective, it's very expensive. Launching new hardware, as we all know, is very expensive. I honestly think the reason why they are launching a diskless console now is so that they can educate the market with an existing console that most people understand about the benefits or the use cases of not having to buy a disc. That way, when the next gen comes around, they don't have to spend that time, money, and effort educating the market about a diskless console. So that is because I've been trying to figure out why they would launch this now. And obviously, it's going to help lower the price. But guys, we all know that a DVD drive or Blu-ray drive, they're not all that expensive.
no.
But if they can come out and prove that this market is ready for a console that does not have a disk drive, it's much cheaper to do it with the Xbox family as it is today than to lose on the next generation.
Okay, so you do see them coming out with possibly I guess it's Anaconda with maybe a disc version and a diskless version, or you think this is just a test run?
I don't know, candidly. I've heard both, that they are still trying to decide. You got to remember that this could be a very late decision in the process to include a drive or not. They already have 100% the infrastructure to deliver just a digital only version.
Mhm.
So I personally do not know which version they're going to launch. And candidly, Microsoft may not know yet. It very much could be that they're going to put this thing out there, and if it's adopted and there's no bad feedback, then yeah, then they might push forward with that model. But if they get a lot of pushback, again, they would rather learn on the current family than have an issue with the launch of the next gen.
So they want to avoid having missteps like they did with the Xbox One, is what you're saying, right? Like
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Because think about how I mean, when somebody said they're launching an updated console with no drive, I was like, this makes no sense. We are so late in this Xbox cycle, just generation. It doesn't really make sense until you start thinking about, oh, they're testing the waters for the years ahead rather than trying to learn and fail like they did with the current gen.
Hey,
Yeah,
Brad.
yeah, go ahead.
No,
man.
my bad. Brad, I like where you're going with this, because at first I was like, man, I hope we don't see this diskless Xbox One S. Like I wish they kind of skipped over it or whatnot.
Sure.
You're making a lot of sense, but I can actually do a little leg room, little running right now for them and let them know if they are thinking about doing a diskless in the future when it comes to Anaconda or even Lockhart or something like that. I don't know. Do you agree with me that there's got to be more memory in the system? If the rumors are true and it's 1 terabyte, I would think that if you're going to go all digital, you got to at least kind of like double that to let the consumer be a little more like, take a better breath. Like, oh,
Sure.
Okay, I have enough room here, Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that is a very logical and sound argument for those higher tiers. And I think Microsoft, it would be really dumb of Microsoft not to try to tap into that. Now, I think we can all understand what they're probably going to say. Look, guys, there's USB ports on the back. Just go buy your 4 terabyte NAS, plug it in, it'll work, and there you go.
There's something about having it in the package, though, and then having the option to add on afterwards. And my opinion, though, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think they're banking on a lot of the people that already own like an S or an X to possibly upgrade. And like most of us have external. And basically, when I upgraded from my S to my X, I unplugged everything that was hooked up to my S and just simply plugged in my X, including the externals. And I didn't have anything on the internal. So it was just like a simple kind of process. I'm guessing that they're kind of looking that into what we're going to see. And I, like anytime any of you guys or gals want to ask Brad something, feel free.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna wing him some questions too. But go ahead, Salty.
So we've heard rumors about Microsoft revealing their consoles at E3 2019. So that's it's around the corner, right? You look at it, it's not that far off. How does this diskless Xbox One S fit into the? It seems out of place if I'd be brutally honest, because you're releasing new hardware and then you're going to be announcing 2 more consoles at E3 potentially. It just feels a weird time slot for this thing to come out. What do you think?
So so here's the thing. I fully agree with you, but then look what they did with the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X. They announced or started shipping or said they're going to ship the Xbox One S. And then at the end of that keynote, they teased the Xbox One X. If you remember that, what they were calling the Scorpio. So and nobody hold me to this because nobody hold me to this. I've heard that it's in April that they're going to come out with Maverick. So I don't know if that is still the truth, but something tells me that maybe they've thought about that and they're like, look, we're just going to get this thing out there. We're going to do all this stuff and just clear the deck for E3 so that there's no confusion. Because you're right. If they go to E3 or something like that and they talk about 3 different consoles they're launching, that is a confusion nightmare for everybody who's watching. That's not like hardcore into this stuff.
Yeah, because they'd have to be specifically and absolutely clear on what this is, because if someone goes out there and they purchase the system, first of all, it's going to be interesting for the consumer to not have a disk drive. That's like a foreign thing for them. So they might see it as like, hey, this is kind of next gen in itself because there's no disk drive here. And then they go out there and they purchase the system, and then 2 months down the line, oh boom, we have this announcement. Hey, we're coming out with 2 more consoles. There's a potential there to upset the consumer base, in my opinion there.
Yeah, Michelle Alexandria, thank you for that donation real quick. Sticking to the E3 topic, Brad. So are you pretty certain we're going to see Anaconda and Lockhart at E3? And if so, how much information will they share? Like, are they going to show you a picture of the console? I would doubt they're going to do the pricing, but maybe some specs or what do you think we're going to see at E3 on these 2 consoles?
So I'm pretty confident we are going to see, in some capacity, the 2 consoles at E3. I've heard it from enough people that are far enough apart that this seems like this is happening. So the question becomes, and it's a very good question, is what are they going to talk about? I fully agree with you. Pricing is not on the cards. And this might be controversial, maybe to some people, but pricing is more important than specs, because the consumer, the moms and dads that walk into Best Buy November of 2020 and want to buy their little child the next gen console, they are extremely price sensitive. I think we can all probably agree that the high end, let's just say PlayStation 5 and Anaconda at minimum are going to do 4K 60 frames per second. Let's just say that's the case. So then we know we're going to get great gaming experiences on both. But the question becomes, if one's $50 higher than the other, well, the mom looks at it and goes, look, I can buy the $50 cheaper one and get my son a game for the price of that one. So pricing will not be revealed until way later, because they don't want to come out and say, oh, it's $499. And then Sony's like, we got to hit $449. and then they have a year to
Do you think
it.
they're still competing with Sony in that way, that they actually care though? Like, I mean, that would be my kind of question. Like, do they really care? Like, I really doubt they're going to announce the price, but I just, something just tells me they don't really look at Sony as being much of competition anymore. More like, someone to actually work with. Hey, Mooch, what's up, man? You here?
I am here, buddy. I am.
think.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we hear you.
Good to be here with everybody. Good to be here with the panel, Brad. Good to have you back here as well. It's been a couple of years since we hung out, but I was just trying to catch up. I see you guys were in the middle of something, so I was just trying to catch up where everybody is, and then of course, Mooch has something to chime in on. Of course.
Yeah. So Brad, getting back to my question, do you think that is
They're
it
competing
be,
with Sony?
Yeah. Are they actually competing with Sony at this point at E3, or is it more of a we're all friends here type of thing?
That's a great question, and it really is, because Microsoft and Sony obviously are both going head to head here, right? They want the platform exclusives, I should say. I shouldn't say console, because Microsoft's looking at this as a platform. But at the same time, Microsoft can exist next to Sony just fine. They're doing it this gen. Whatever Sony does doesn't, I don't think, impact Microsoft's long-term plans in this segment in any way, because Microsoft is already looking beyond the console with xCloud and all that stuff. And so is Sony a competitor at the show? It's one of those things, they're going to be cordial in person and they'll go back and it's like their closest rival, but they're also kind of friends at the end of the day, if that makes any sort of semblance of logic.
I mean, yeah, like there's got to be some kind of, you're a business,
right.
Sony's kind of took it to you, especially last gen, really, like just honestly took them out to the woodshed and mercilessly just right from the start. And not to say that Microsoft hasn't come back with some good things, because if they would have just kept going that kind of way they were going, that cockiness probably wasn't good for anybody. And Sony actually, probably helped them steer to what we're sort of getting in terms of being able to have some games and stuff like that. So I find that to be very interesting. Do you think they're going to announce price cuts and things like that for the X or the current boxes and things like that?
That I honestly do not. I don't have any idea. Pricing stuff is really, really hard to come by, because it's very much dictated by what they're seeing in sales trends, right? If your console is selling like really gangbusters in April, why would you cut the price?
Yeah.
So that I don't know. I think if we see anything on the pricey front, it's going to be the Maverick console. That's going to try to be their new lowest entry point for the Xbox.
Where do you see that price falling?
Oh, easily sub $200.
Okay, so below $200, and
that at least
wow.
let me
$100.
That is their target. That is their target, is to be sub 200.
Okay, that's very. Go ahead, Salty.
Real quick, did you guys see the latest rumors about PlayStation 5? I know there's a rumor it seems like every day, right?
Yeah.
But there's a guy, Yasuo Imanaka. I guess he's an industry analyst for Rakuten Securities. He's predicting that the PS5 won't release until the fiscal year going from April 2021 through March 2022. If this is the case, then Xbox, the next gen Xboxes are going to be out substantially sooner than the PlayStation 5. What do you guys see, specifically, Brad? Like, if this happens, like, is this an advantage for Xbox, or is it a disadvantage? Because this is a pretty large gap if it comes to fruition.
It's so hard to tell. Because the thing that sells consoles, at least this generation, was IP, right? And so you can come out with the best things. And the thing is, I've talked to so many people at Microsoft. Microsoft has I will argue this too. I will die on this hill. Microsoft has the technology advantage going into this next generation. And I don't care what Sony does. There is no way in hell that they can match what Microsoft has built up, because Microsoft has a cloud infrastructure. Each data center is $1 billion, and they have like 40 regions, which consists of like 2 each. And that is all part of their xCloud platform. They have HoloLens gaming experience. They have this streaming infrastructure. They have the chip expertise. They have the security expertise. And the most valuable thing Microsoft has right now is Xbox Live. Nobody comes close to that experience right now. I mean, look at Nintendo's online. PlayStation has theirs. but Xbox Live is the best in class experience. And so to your point, if they're a year ahead, I don't worry about Sony being a year later and then coming in and saying, look, ours does 4K 290 frames per second. Like, that doesn't matter. What matters, and this is why Microsoft bought so many gaming studios a while ago, is they need the IP. And as long as the consoles launch with a solid structure for getting out good gaming experiences on the platform exclusivity, they will be absolutely fine long term.
Here's the situation that I kind of want to bring up, and if you guys talked about it already, let me know. But it's you know, this is a big controversy. Everybody's been talking about it. There's a lot of hype. There's some positivity, some negativity.
Oh,
but,
bring it in there, Mooch. Bring it in there.
No. Stepping just back for a second and making sense of it all. And like I said, I'm interested to hear everybody's take on, especially Brad's. Is that I look at it like this. We've been saying this for a long time, and it goes with Brad was just saying. Okay, Microsoft is known for their software. We know what they do. This is what we've been saying, be the person that you are, because you are a software giant. What I'm seeing here is, yes, the 360 was a flash in the pan. They hit big time. They hit it big time. They actually gave Sony a run for their money. But in this situation here, Microsoft saw in this generation, wait a minute, you know, we're not winning in hardware. How can we actually go back and combat these folks and give them a pushback and fight them at the fight that we have the advantage? And that's in software. So now, Brad, tell me if you think this is the truth. I think they took a step back at the boardroom and they said, wait a minute, we want to make the most powerful console. We know that power matters. Okay, the Steam box had something going for it, but Valve just didn't have the first-party games. Okay, right, and they didn't want to mess with their own hardware. Maybe they didn't want to financially touch it, or they could financially touch it. And they had nothing to do with it. They didn't have the engineering for it. That's another conversation. Microsoft has the means to make the hardware. Okay, they have the first-party studios. Then they doubled down and bought more first-party studios. I think what they're thinking now is listen, we're going to go ahead and give you our version of a Steam box, but where we're going to attack you now. Everyone thinks it's all kumbaya. I don't think it's necessarily kumbaya. I think here's what I think it is. I think they're still trying to win, but now what they're going to win is on the software front. You know as well as I know, Brad, that whether or not Sony sells 100 million copies, 100 million consoles, they'd much rather sell 100 million copies of God of War, right?
Yep.
That's where the money is. So realistically speaking, getting Xbox Live on the Nintendo, getting it on the PlayStation, in the end, is a huge victory for them. They're not necessarily leaving the hardware space, but they know what their strength is. And we now also know, okay, us consumers, we can see that Sony's always been the hardware company. That's been their claim to fame, right? They've been doing everything from Blu-rays on back to the Walkman. Okay.
What's your question, Mooch?
My question basically is that we see that Microsoft's plan of attack is no longer in the hardware space. Their plan of attack is in the software space. I'm wondering if Brad agrees with that strategy.
Oh, I fully agree. Microsoft, so like my background is I cover all of Microsoft. I wrote a book about Surface and all sorts of stuff. Microsoft sells hardware so that they can bundle services with it. That's why the HoloLens that they just announced over the weekend, the reason why they're selling that is so that you have to buy Azure cloud services. That is what they do. And to your point, that is what Microsoft is good at. And so we are entering a point where console, if you jump back a couple generations, console hardware used to be this really boutique thing.
Right.
And it had custom chips. And because you couldn't go to Intel and grab an off-the-shelf part and make it be good enough. So you had to design your own stuff. And that's not what Microsoft was good at. We've gotten to this point where it's like the same thing with cell phones. Cell phones all look the exact same. They all do the same stupid thing. And now we've got to the point where, okay, to make a console that does 60 frames per second at 4K, that is easy. Now, let's let that user take that. If you could buy, you know, the greatest thing that Microsoft is working on right now is that you're playing Halo on your Anaconda, and crap, I got to go over to my in-laws' house. You know what? I'm going to keep playing it on my phone and get the greatest experience ever. That mobility, that modality of Xbox, this is why I keep saying platform rather than console, because I firmly believe that Xbox is eventually just going to be a software package that just runs on things. You could build your own Xbox. You can put it on your phone. This is xCloud in the making. And that is exactly what you're saying. And I'm fully on board that they are a software. They're building that infrastructure out.
Brad, what about the latest tweets that you had out recently? I mean, that was one of the things that I thought that got me triggered a little bit, because I went ahead and built a semi-decent rig, because Xbox has been saying for the past 2 years, Xbox is PC and PC is Xbox. And I thought Play Anywhere was truly going to be that. So I saw that they were doing that with games like, and pardon me if I get some of the titles wrong, but Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I saw Resident Evil 7, BioShock. That was all going to be part of the Play Anywhere scheme. Then what happens is I build this computer, and now most of the games are not playable unless it's first party. Now, I did see that you said that something different is happening, that when you purchase a game on Xbox, you know, you're saying that, or purchase it on PC, pardon me, it's playing from the Xbox catalog or the Xbox store. What does that translate to some of us that have a PC and a console and have wanted Play Anywhere and haven't been getting it except for first party games?
So here's what, for those who aren't familiar with what he's talking about, this week, I'm losing track of the days. I got a whole bunch of tips from people. If you jump back, I think it was February 8th, Microsoft put out a build on their Insider program that is a 20H1 release, which means it is coming in the first half of 2020. And this was like way, way unusual for Microsoft. And they're specifically in this build, they were asking people to go download a game and then play it. And like, I was like, this makes no sense. Like, why is Microsoft, one, giving me a free game? Why are they putting out this build? And so on February 8th, this puzzle started, and I worked with some really smart technical people. And what we found out is that this game that they gave us is, you go into the Microsoft store and you download it. And it looks like a normal download, but it's not coming from the Microsoft Store servers. It's actually coming from the Xbox game server, which was, we're like, oh, okay. Well, this is one odd one, because this breaks what Microsoft was trying to do with the Microsoft Store, where it's a really secure thing, only comes from one server. So that was oddity number one. So we get the game downloaded, and when you break apart the packaging that the download comes in, I believe it was an XCV or XVC, I can't remember which one. And we were all like, what the heck is this? That file format debuted for Microsoft when the Xbox One launched. So what you actually downloaded was the packaging that they put Xbox games in onto your PC. Okay. And then the craziest part of this, and it's a little bit more technical, was when you ran that game, it installed DirectX, which most of us know what DirectX is. But here's the problem. When you download anything from the Microsoft Store, it's supposed to be sandbox. So people can't inject viruses. So they can't put malware or crypto miners and all that stuff. DirectX needs low-level system access. Basically, it breaks out of that sandbox. So what Microsoft effectively did was they loaded up what we believe to be the PC version inside of an Xbox container, and then ran it through the Xbox plumbing to deliver to your machine. Now, this isn't quite fully double-click run Xbox One games. The components and windows are not there yet. But when you put all this together, what we believe Game Core are those missing components to allow developers to build one version of the game, one binary package that runs on both platforms. Now, what it sounds like I just said is you can run Xbox games on the PC. And I got to be really clear. I believe that would be possible, but it is going to be up to the developer to make that happen.
Interesting. Hey, everybody, in case you guys are just joining us, Brad Sams from Throat.com. That's how you pronounce that, right? Yeah. I say it sometimes, and people are like, that's not how you say it. And I'm like, okay. So he's kind enough to join us here. He's also got his own Petri.com, which I've linked all of his information, his Twitter, his sites, and everything down below. You guys can check him out. They're very gracious for him to join us. Brad, so I think a lot of people, we waited to kind of talk about this. What have you heard? Because I'll tell you, like, I've been doing YouTube for a little while, and I've managed to make a few friends, and people have come through and told me some good information and given me things. And and I heard that last year Microsoft wanted to announce Xbox Game Pass on both PlayStation 4 and the Switch, and then pulled back last minute. And now we're seeing rumors of the Switch stuff heating up again. What have you heard, and what do you think about that?
So, this is plain language as I can say it from what I have heard from people that I trust, and it's going to be a big like air out of the balloon. Well, sort of. So I have heard from people who would be in the know that Microsoft and Nintendo are working on something.
Okay.
And I don't know what that something is. Microsoft is holding it very close to the chest. This is I believe, a bigger deal than most people might think. Now, is that Game Pass on Switch? It could be. You got to remember, Nintendo's online gaming infrastructure is suboptimal, would be putting it nicely.
That's
right?
very putting
you're
it
being
nicely.
nice.
Yeah.
I like the Switch. I don't want to bash Nintendo. I liked
Yeah.
Reggie. I hope he enjoys retirement. I like what Nintendo's doing, but their online stuff is not great. You know who has a great online platform? Microsoft.
Xbox Live. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. And candidly, I don't think that Microsoft and Nintendo really compete. Yes, they both make gaming things, but typically people will have one or both. It's not like they go to the store and say, should I buy an Xbox or a Switch?
Yeah,
Like,
very true.
and so I think Microsoft, knowing that they love partnerships, can agree that, well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And they look at Nintendo and be like, well, hey, I think we can have some fun together. Let's figure something out.
yeah. So you think it's more of possibly being maybe Xbox Live related? Maybe them helping out, trying to get them a decent, competent online service, or
it could be. I mean, let's just put it this way, guys. You can't take Halo as it is today and just magically make it work on the Switch, right? That like the Switch doesn't have Jaguar cores in it. It doesn't have the same binary set. You can't just lift the game from Xbox and dump it on a Switch. If they're going to do that, there has to be a lot of work. Not to mention the Switch, it doesn't have the same amount of horsepower either. So if they're going to be, in my opinion, and this could change, and I could be wrong in that they are re-architecting all of these platforms, what makes sense is that you have xCloud available on the Switch. That would make a lot of sense. Not like, I can't imagine them picking up the Master Chief Collection, which they had trouble with anyways. Like, guys, it's on the Switch now. Like, that doesn't. There's so many technical challenges to something like that.
Yeah.
But what would you say about like the PS4? Is that completely BS or not?
Well, I mean, let's think about it. Logically, it sounds really weird. It's kind of like kissing your cousin or something, because it's like, hey, what, this just feels really weird. Like, it shouldn't happen. But at the same time, Microsoft wants to reach the largest number of gamers. I personally don't see Sony allowing it, because that's going to challenge their own, their whole world. First of all, because imagine if you had a PlayStation and the PlayStation Network goes down, you're like, oh crap, I'm going to fire up Xbox on here. And oh God, it's better. I'm going to buy all my stuff through the Xbox store and not do
Good
Sony.
point.
And then, you're just dangling that. Is Sony really going to let Microsoft dangle the carrot inside their console platform? Because as soon as somebody bites that carrot, they're Xbox. Like, there's no reason they would stay.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because the Switch, all right, like I agree, xCloud could be a thing. One of the things that kind of throws me off on that is the fact that there's no service provider for Switch, meaning you would only be able to play those Xbox games if you were near Wi-Fi, and probably pretty decent Wi-Fi. So you couldn't really they couldn't download it like we do. So it wouldn't be, I don't think, as worth as much, in my opinion. Like, do you see any kind of problems with that? Like, I actually think it would behoove Microsoft to come out with a piece of hardware like the Switch that can run stuff, you know what I mean, and have a provider to do it, because I think that would be much bigger than what, say, the Switch could possibly do, where you'd have to be tethered to Wi-Fi all the time. Because if you're tethered to Wi-Fi and you have an Xbox anyway, you can just play that stuff with your Xbox. Like, it doesn't make sense, because that's sort of what Sony did at the beginning of this generation, where they had PS Now on mobile, on like Blu-ray players, on TVs, and nobody cared. Like, literally nobody used it, so much so that they pulled it back, and now it's like only available on like PC and the PS4. So like what's your thoughts with that? Sort of like, could that possibly be something? Because I've also heard that Microsoft is working on porting a version of like a Forza game to the Switch. Like
that wouldn't surprise me. Like, it would not surprise me to see Microsoft work with Nintendo. Like there is something going on between Microsoft and Nintendo. I think most people agree to that. I don't think we really know the full story, and maybe we'll learn more at E3, or maybe we'll learn more down the road. But at the same time, Microsoft, again, as we were talking earlier, they are in the software and services business. They are not a hardware company at heart. And if they can find a way to make a buck on the Nintendo Switch, I have to think that they're going to go after that market. And, you know, they're going to make some concessions for Nintendo. And let's be candid, Nintendo doesn't exactly have great intellectual property outside of their own company, right? They've got all the Marios and they've got their own platform, but they don't have great first-person shooters on that platform. They miss some of that stuff. And maybe by working with Microsoft, they can bridge that gap and be better together rather than they are apart. Because again, those two companies, I don't think compete. And it's not like Microsoft and Sony are linking up. These are two complementary companies rather than overlapping companies.
Real quick. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
There's something that not anybody is talking about, and something I just barely thought about. The Wi-Fi technology that's in the Nintendo Switch is the 802.11n standard, which only goes up to about 300 megabytes per second. It can reach 450. But if we're talking about streaming and getting, 5G, you have to have pretty fast and reliable internet. So what's, in the box right now currently with the Switch, I don't know necessarily if it'd be up to par, up to standard, because, some people are getting 1,000 right now,
Well, xCloud,
easy.
Microsoft and Xbox, they're claiming that with xCloud, all you need is about like a 10 megabyte connection and you're streaming games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, to throw another wrench in the cog there, there's also rumor that next year that there's possibly I'm going to call it the Super Switch. There's a rumor, right? I mean, there's a few reports coming out that are saying they're going to have something that's a lot more powerful than what we currently have. I'm not saying I buy into it, but it does kind of lead into what Salty's talking about. You know what I mean? Where Salt makes a point to say, whenever they say that there's a maximum number, that's not generally what we're all bringing in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, anybody who has Verizon Fios that says you get your 1 gig down, 1 gig up, I got news for you. Go ahead and go to your Xbox. Of course, the Xbox won't process that fast. You're lucky if you're getting 250. So my point being is it is a concern moving forward. I think Salt makes a good point as far as the hardware on the Switch. My other question for the panel, not to keep just poking Brad with questions, but is if the deal is to go on, we keep hearing that Microsoft and Nintendo are going to have this deal. I think a lot of people want to know
that what's for a couple years, too,
right. But what are the Xbox? A lot of people want to know, what is Xbox? If Xbox Live will hypothetically in the future fit so well on the game on the Switch, would that also mean that Xbox Live would maybe get some of the old school Nintendo games? And I don't mean the new ones by no stretch, but what about all the games you get with Nintendo Online for $20 a year? There's a lot of great classics on there that I think is a nice give and take back and forth. One of the issues I've always had is I don't know if the negotiating folks at the table at Microsoft are looking into that part of it to get that part of the bargaining chip back for the Xbox fans or the Xbox community. It just always seems like we're talking about, we'll put Xbox games on the Switch. I'm pretty certain, I speak for myself and many other gamers that have been gaming for 20 plus years, wouldn't mind getting Super Ghosts and Goblins to jam out on an Xbox Live.
Yeah, but
right?
Well, first off, I like what Brad said, like there's something going on we don't know. But I also like what Brad said about, Microsoft, Xbox, selling services as well. I hear what you're saying, Mooch, but at the end of the day, if they do put Game Pass on the Switch, that's putting their service somewhere else where they can make the money off.
Well, Nintendo's going to make money off. Don't fool yourself, Xbox. Nintendo's going to make money off that too. So why can't
they're
Xbox
making money off their console anyway? So Microsoft's like, if we put that on there, we're gonna get a
but
nice
my old slogan. Well. People that make money, you know what they love? More money.
More money.
So like that's my slogan, right? So I just think that when push comes to shove, it would be don't give us Mario Odyssey. I get that's not coming, but it would be amazing to get some of the great old classics on Xbox Live. On Game Pass, if you would. That would be an amazing gesture back from Nintendo.
Mooch, it's not a far stretch to see Nintendo do something like that, because just look at the way that they're going. The person that's in there currently as the president, he's doing things that haven't been done before. And he's putting, so first of all, when I saw the announcement that Super Mario Brothers, even it's a different version on the phone, when it was coming to iPhone, that initial announcement, I was like, holy shit, like this is something that I didn't see Nintendo doing. And then they're starting to put more and more Nintendo properties on phones, and that's something, if you would have told someone 10 years ago, they would have been like, no way, that's not happening. This is a traditional company, they're not going to do that. But they see the bigger picture. So if they don't, if Nintendo and Xbox don't see each other as competitors, which they don't, then why not put some of these games on there? Some of the older ones, maybe pick and choose which ones you want to put on there. And potentially, you could see it in Game Pass. I could see it going both ways. Like, hey, we could put some of these in there if you want for limited time, see how it goes. It's just the way it was before 5 years ago is not the way it is now with Nintendo. So,
when it comes down to it, I look at it like if that doesn't happen, I'm not saying it won't happen. I like what you guys are saying, and there's a chance down the road. But if it doesn't happen, any way that Xbox, like when it comes to streaming and Game Pass, I don't care. You can put that on everybody's toaster out there. I really don't give. I don't give two craps whatsoever, right? Because at the end of the day, that money's going back into Xbox. You saw what they signed when it comes to development studios and everything like that, and we're going to have more games coming out on the console I love to play on. But one thing, guys, I will kick myself if there's two questions I do have for Brad, if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead, man. Jump in.
All right. Brad, I heard you talk about basically the golden goose being Xbox Live, right?
Yep.
With all these rumors, xCloud, Game Pass, possibly on multiple devices and stuff like that. I have a feeling that, if somebody is committed to playing Game Pass on their phone or whatnot, I don't think they're going to have to pay Xbox Live Gold. I feel that if Game Pass goes on the Switch, I think Microsoft and Xbox will be happy with that subscription, that the $10 a month or whatever that, they're going to charge for that in the future. So I was wondering, with that being the golden goose right there, do you think that there is going to come a time in like the near future where Xbox decides that the gold is actually going to be a free service on console?
That's a really, well, first off, at E3 this year, there will be Game Pass news. I'm very confident in that.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, no, I've got a pretty good guess at what it is. I'm not going to go live with it yet, but I'm getting there. It's a puzzle.
Dang. I was hoping we would have got some exclusive stuff, man.
He's saving it for Crossfire on Friday.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Trust me. More realistically, if I knew, I think I know, but if I was exactly confident, I would talk about it. I mean, I'm not like holding it back because I'm trying to like keep something in my back pocket.
I'm just trying to make sure.
I don't want to come out and be like, oh, this is happening, and then because I've had it happen before, and then people come at me with pitchforks like, wow, you didn't happen. It's like, well,
hey, I know I've had that happen to me many times.
If you go back and watch, I think it was 2 years ago, there was an Xbox streaming device, not to get off subject, called Hobart. And I was like, this thing's coming. It's coming. Microsoft ordered 225,000 of them. And then it didn't launch. And I was like, oh, no, what happened? And then thankfully, my buddy Jez, like 8 months later, got it. Like, he's like, yeah, this thing was real. And so some vindication, but at E3. Anyways, to get back to your question about Xbox Live Gold, it would be very hard for Microsoft to back that out right now, because that is something people are, on a marketing perspective, that is something people are just kind of accustomed to. Like, I don't complain about paying for Xbox Live Gold right now. So would they take it away from the Xbox itself? I could see them never. I don't think they would do that. Now, on your phone, would you need Xbox Live Gold? What I personally think that they would do, and we will see here, is it's probably just a bundle that if you want to play it, it's like if you want all the services, you're just going to pay whatever it is per month, and you don't really have a choice because it's just part of the Game Pass package. Would be my thought.
Yeah, well, Brad, there are gamers out there that are still to this day upset that when it comes to Xbox Live on PC, that PC gamers aren't putting down the money for Xbox Live to, to play multiplayer and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
there are gamers out there that are upset. And if I feel that if, they keep going, I know they're going to go with Game Pass. I see exactly what they're doing with this. And I hope it's a success. So this way, people, the gamers out there that are kind of confused by it by now is like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. I'm cool with that. But, I feel like if you start offering, Game Pass, multiple devices, you can play multiplayer, and if they don't have that fee in there, it's going to make more and more console gamers upset at them for what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you make a very logical and compelling argument that if I see somebody else getting the same services that I'm paying for, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So I fully am on board. This is something that just a decision that Microsoft is going to have to make. And I think I bet you anything that they were having these exact same arguments and saying, well, if it was only $3.99 on the phone, that's great. But then wait, what about all our Xbox people that are paying us $5.99 or whatever it is per month? Like
$9.99.
Yeah,
if you pay monthly. Well, Brad, let me ask you a question. So even if they don't make gold free, which I highly suspect they won't, because if you look at what it brings in, the last reported numbers for gold itself was around $3 billion a year, which
I mean, that's
in and of itself, in and of itself is enough to warrant them making an Xbox console, right? Like they're going, should we make another? Like I realize that because everybody knows they're making more Xbox consoles, right? Because they go, oh, don't worry, there's going to be consoles. They're going to keep doing that. Even though, like you, I believe that eventually it'll transition into some sort of app that you can, whatever. Like I do think that's going to happen. But I think they're appeasing people right now, going, we're going to build a console. Plus, we make $3 billion off of these people. It makes sense because they make their money back off of Xbox Live Gold anyway. So my question is, do you think they'll walk back at the very least the free-to-play Xbox Live Gold requirement? Because that is something that I find that grinds my gears about Microsoft, and I'm a big Xbox fan.
Great question, man.
But to me, they're like, we're so pro-consumer and options. But then this big option where everybody's playing, the most played games are Fortnite and Apex, free-to-play games that people have to pay $60 a year for, and some people are paying just that amount just to play those games. You know what I mean? And I feel that that's a little bit, they could really win some things over with that. Nobody ever seems to talk about that because Microsoft is like, cross-play's the future. Let's all play together, but you got to pay $60 to play free games. We
don't have free games. That's the point.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So what do you think with that?
Well, again, you're raising a very good and valid point. What I think we are going to see Microsoft have to the question Microsoft is going to have to answer when these materials or when these services start to materialize is, what is the value proposition of Xbox Live Gold in this kind of new streaming free-to-play game on any device world? Because it's not like when Xbox Live launched, it's like you had that black giant box, and to get that thing online you needed Xbox Live Gold. We are in a totally different world. So we need to see how, or they need to figure out how they're going to justify it in this new world where Xbox games are in other places. I wish I had some great answer or insight, but that is my mentality, is that they have this service. It's making a lot of money. People are paying it. How do they evolve it to adapt to the modern infrastructure or ecosystem that gamers are now living in, as opposed to the one when it launched, 2 generations ago?
Interesting. Over 700 watching. We got the Brad Sams, well-known insider, Throat.com, and his own sites as well. Everything linked down below. Like it, all that kind of stuff. Get it out there. Brad, real quick, I also wanted to know possibility of, have you heard anything about the next Xboxes being, or the current Xbox, or the X at least, being forward compatible with their next gen thing? Is that going to be a thing? Is that going to hold back the consoles, do you think? Like you seem like a tech guy, know some of this stuff. What have you heard about that?
So this is the riddle I'm trying to figure out right now, because the Xbox One X is a very capable console. It really is. Granted, they basically just bolted on some more Jaguar cores and just put a supercharger on this thing, and it could use some modernizing. But at the same time, it does 4K gaming, and for a large majority of people, that is fine. I mean, that's perfectly fine. The one thing I do know, and I don't think this is going to be reported, but this shouldn't be a big surprise, is that Lockhart, the lower end console, will be more powerful than the Xbox One X. I mean, that makes sense. They can't come out with a new console. Now, the question is going to be pricing of that Lockhart, but it's expected to be more powerful than the X is currently.
I'm glad you said that, though, Brad, because a lot of people were reporting earlier last week saying that the Lockhart was going to be 4 teraflops when, you know, we already sit at 6. And I knew they were trying to sell that as a 1080p 60 machine. But realistically speaking, everybody likes forward progression. So at the very least, I could see them putting in the same CPU as the Anaconda in the Lockhart, but you'd have at least got to keep the teraflops and that kind of GPU power the same. Wouldn't you agree? I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and granted, I don't know the complete spec breakdown, but what I was told is that Lockhart is expected to be more powerful than the Xbox One X. Now, to address your question of forwards and backwards capability, I don't fully know yet. I believe that the next Halo that is going to be launching will be available on both platforms. At least that is their target. Because you got to remember that all launch titles, I bet, coming to Anaconda and all that, are going to have some sort of backwards capability. Because if you want to address the largest market, you can't just sell for the new console because the market doesn't exist yet. It's going as
right, brother. That's right.
Right. Like a game shop has to sell a lot of games, and the best way to do that is to make it the largest possible audience. So there's definitely going to be games that come out and are playable on both. Now, what I don't know is 5 years from now, when an Anaconda game comes out, will it boot up on your Xbox One X? I don't know. All I know is that when consoles launch, Microsoft is very lenient on the requirements for the game. It doesn't have to take advantage of everything because they know that building a game for a console that's not shipping is tough. And so I don't think we know yet. I hope that it is, but I definitely think it's probably fair to say that the next generation will be able to play all of the current generation games that we're playing right now, right? It should be backwards compatible. Microsoft's made a legacy on that.
Yeah, even the controllers, obviously, people buy a $150 Elite controller. They want it to work on the next-gen stuff. So I get that. I think everybody's real confused about forward compatibility because Microsoft mentioned ending generations as we know it.
Yeah.
And the only problem that I have with that is, realistically, if you're still tied to the Xbox One S, even that means you're tied to the original Xbox One as well. And I think that would really be holding things back if you didn't kind of give developers a little bit more to work with, because I've seen some interviews with developers, not Microsoft developers, but other ones that say, well, we got to ship this thing on the Xbox One too. So, it's difficult to really go all out, and, you'd have to make almost different games at this point. So I've heard both kind of arguments. That's why I think a lot of people, and I'm trying to ask as many questions as I can because I know you're a busy guy and stuff. Maybe you had heard something about that.
The only thing that, to me, that would actually make some sense is xCloud, right? I very much believe that they will make xCloud available in some capacity on the Xbox One generation as we know it right now. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that they know that makes sense. And so if every game coming out for the Anaconda or Scarlet generation is xCloud compatible, then in theory, they would all work on the consoles we have today.
I think, and I know that this may be the kryptonite for Brad, but, I'll be honest with you, they may follow the Apple theory here, right? And that's the thing I'm trying to say here is if you still own an iPhone 5e, if you would, you could still download the updated software that currently comes out on Apple's ecosystem on the iOS. However, I'll give you an example, and anybody who has iPads knows this is for sure. I have many generations of iPad in the house, and only some of them are able to play Fortnite. So what happens is when you open your doors like this, as we're about to walk into a new generation of console between the X and moving forward, you may have a situation, and Brett, I think it would be easy for a lot of people to say, no, you can't do that. But you can, and it's being done right now, again, on the mobile market, is that you would say games playable from the Xbox One X and forward. Things like that would have to start to be done. And think about it, even if that doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people now, once you say we are not looking back and we're not going to close doors, and this is no longer, we're not doing generation end gaps like we did with the 360 and before, you eventually do have software that's not really that compatible with the hardware anymore. So that's just a fact. As a matter of fact, I think you can have what Xbot 448 was alluding to and what we were all kind of getting at with forward compatibility, if we can stress the fact of how they will preach to the customer moving forward, that if you have a PS4 Pro or an X, I think 5 years may be a step out, like you were saying, Brad, but maybe 3 years out, you say if you have an X or anything, Scarlet or Lockhart, you can play these games on. If not, it won't work. They'll have to put that on the branding somehow. Do you see that with open policy and open doors and no real stopgap to generations, they've got to walk a fine line here. Do you see them using maybe the Apple method?
So here's the wrench I will throw into this. And I'll say if Maverick launches this spring, like I fully believe it does, it's a really tough conversation to have to somebody say, hey, come buy this console in the spring. And then, in 3 years, it's useless.
Right.
So what that tells me is that Microsoft, if this console launches, Microsoft already has this backwards forwards thing figured out, because they would not risk launching this console knowing that everyone who buys it is dead in the water in 36 months. That is not something Microsoft wants to do. So if, again, this console launches this spring, which I believe it will, they already know the answer to how this is going to work.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes, Microsoft, Phil or them, they tend to put their foot in their mouth, but I feel like it's already too late. Like he kind of already said family of, Xbox devices and whatnot. And it's kind of like people are expecting to be able to play the next, Halo and whatnot in their OG fat Xbox Ones, it's already kind of like already a given in a way. And even if you could play it and it's a lesser version, like it has less features or maybe it's just not as pretty, I think people expect to still be able to play Halo. Now, if you want all the bells and whistles and you want to play in 4K 60, then you would upgrade. That's
with
your
all
choice.
the texture packages and
Yeah.
lighting and all that good stuff, man.
But I would think that they're making it for all the systems, all the Xboxes, and maybe for the actually, obviously for the Game Pass and all that stuff as well.
When it comes down to it, I'm sorry, Crap, but when it comes
ahead.
down to it, I hear what Brad is saying, and it's funny because I think Brad and Mooch, you kind of are saying the same thing. Now, that whole iOS thing where the older phones, or the older pads, some of them can still play Fortnite, others can't. I feel that, when it comes to this whole generational thing, once the Anaconda and Lockhart become the Xbox console that everybody's getting, a couple of years in or whatnot, then, because I know Microsoft, they love looking at their numbers and all that good stuff. Once you see that, then they can kind of loosen the chains on forwards compatibility when it comes to like the Xbox One and the One S. I think like for the first maybe like 2 years of that generation, yeah, definitely. And then it's like, well, let's see what the numbers say right now. And that's probably where they go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Brad, we're kind of. I think I want to see if there's any kind of surprises I can pull out from you, because you were tweeting today about E3 and Microsoft's bringing some fire, and I've seen some other tweets from people too. Is there anything that you can share, like maybe like to get people excited, Xbox fans excited about this E3 that Microsoft's going to be doing? Is there anything that you can share with the people out there?
I think we're going to start to see what I would recommend people do is go back and look at some of the early interviews that Phil Spencer did when he took over the role, when he talked about gaming on other platforms and PC game. He did an interview, was it today that came out?
Yeah, he did.
Yesterday.
Yeah, PC Gamer, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to start to see Phil's vision that he talked about come to reality. And I think we're going to see some, well, I know we're going to see some PC gaming stuff, I believe. We're going to see some Game Pass stuff. We're going to see some next-gen console stuff. Still trying to figure out what about next-gen consoles. But it's going to be a good show. Like, I think people saw, hey, Sony's pulling out of this. I think Microsoft's just going to lay up a softball. Like, I am actually seeing the opposite. I think this is going to be a good show. And there was so much crap on Twitter saying, like, Xbox hasn't had good shows in a while. Like, guys, they just launched the Xbox One X. How is that not a good, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Ever. It's like, come on. I mean, I think there's such a polarization in the industry. It's like, if I have a PlayStation, I can't be happy about what is happening in the, like, guys, whatever happens is good for gamers. The best thing in the world that can happen is that Sony sells 50 million consoles and Microsoft sells 49,999,000, because that means that they are gunning head and head and they are bringing out their best to us. So, like, to have one console win, the worst thing that could happen is that we only live in a PlayStation world, because then Sony just does nothing, ships a console, rakes in the money. Competition is the best thing that can happen, and I'm so happy that Microsoft is actually trying to figure this out, and Phil Spencer is leading a charge to be competitive with Sony, which is going to be better for all of us. And I think we're going to begin to see more of that at E3.
Do you think they're going to do some heavy focuses on console? Because, like, me personally, I'm just a console guy. I don't game on PC. I don't game on mobile. Like, I feel like they've kind of stepped away a bit from, you know, like, originally it feels like we're in it to win it consoles, where, you know, I want Xbox gamers to feel first class. And now it's like all their announcements tend to be very much skewed towards, like, this PC gamer thing. We brought in developers that can work on PC, and they're going to, you know, do what they want. We're gonna redo the Microsoft Store for PC. We're bringing xCloud so people on PC or whatever platform can play. Like, there's not really that Xbox love that there used to be. How do you feel they feel about Xbox, and are we as Xbox console? Because I know, like, the panel for sure is mostly just Xbox. What are they going to do to, like, maybe sort of reinvigorate some of this? Because as someone, like, a lot of people in the community just you know, you just kind of get down on it a little bit. Everything, you know, you hear constantly about, like, the PC side of it and this, and you know what I mean? It's like they announced Gears Tactics for PC only, Minecraft Dungeons PC only,
like
Age of
everything else.
Empires. Yeah,
everything else is getting worked on, but the console itself, it's at a steady, like, standstill right now.
Yeah, what's their dedication to the console and things like that, like, in your opinion?
So I think Microsoft is doing a smoke and mirrors right now. I really, really believe this. And the reason why I say that is because of GameCore that Microsoft is building. I believe that it makes a lot more sense to work on a PC and build GameCore and then have it work seamlessly on an Xbox. That is the idea, is that it's the same game. So what I believe why you see, it's on PC, it's on PC, it's on PC. Guys, the Xbox is a PC. It was built by AMD. It's a Jaguar core. It is x86. Make no mistake, that box you have, it's just a custom PC. And I think the next generation console we're going to see is going to be a much bigger shift towards it being just a PC. Now, it's going to look like a console. It's going to have the same features as a console. But Microsoft is really good at building software that can span the gap between what is a PC and what is a console. It's really just a controller at the end of the day, and that kind of integrated experience. So I don't look negatively upon what Microsoft does with the PC space, because that translates very easily for them over to the console for the next generation. Now, I understand how you can be current gen and be like, this is a little frustrating, but this is a longer term, bigger play, because I'm convinced that Xbox is becoming a platform and not a destination like a console.
Okay. Anybody else want to follow that up with something?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a question for Mike.
I know.
I don't know. Yeah, right. I've been trying to let everybody else go. No, my thing was, I thought it was interesting that Microsoft wants to do the big show at E3, right? Because that is where you do the big show. But the problem is that Sony, the rumor is that Sony may launch their PS. And if you guys talked about this previously before I got here, let me know. But Sony's rumored to be launching the PS5 in March of 2020. That would make sense why Microsoft wants to do this major show in 2019 at the E3 stage, to get their hardware out there, get the press out there first. But realistically speaking, let's say that the rumor for Sony isn't true. If the rumor for Sony isn't true and they're not coming out in March of 2020 and they're coming out in holiday, the same time 2020 as Microsoft, I think it's a little early. Why would Microsoft choose and elect to do the big show when they've always had a dedicated show put on by their own brass and have their own, like, everything catered to them the way that they want the show to go for all their reveals? I found this a bit alarming. So I was wondering, Brad, do you think that maybe they have these companies know what each other is doing? You know, everyone's like, nobody knows. They know. The one thing I would say is, do we think that possibly the PS5 might have a March 2020 launch, and that's why they're doing all the fireworks this June? I mean, that's just a little unusual to me. We're typically seeing Microsoft do their own event, whether it be in Redmond, New York, or at E3 prior, you know, months prior, not year and a half prior to a console launch.
So there's a lot of things to unpack there. The one thing is I struggle with the idea of a March console launch, only because the spring is a terrible time to launch product. It really is, because you're heading into summer. Most people are kind of hungover from Christmas.
Yep.
It's not a good time. The best time to launch products, when does Apple release their iPhones, their iPads, their Macs? It's all in the fall.
October, November. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's when Microsoft launches
but, you know,
Surface hardware.
Nintendo kind of proved them wrong, though, right, Brad? I mean, they launched the Switch in March, and now you see, listen, you've been gaming a long time, too. You ever remember a January, February, March, April stack of software like this?
Mooch, when does Nintendo follow, you know, industry
exactly?
trends, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, but Salty, let me add to your comment. You're right. Nintendo doesn't, but people love to follow Nintendo.
I mean,
you know, like,
you
everything
can't really follow
of
what they do, though. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, I don't know. I think markets are trendable. I think you can follow that.
First of all, with like the whole March release date of, what did you say, 2020?
Yeah.
I don't see that happening for PlayStation. I've said this for a while, because there's the latest rumors it's not going to come out till 2021, 2022, like early 2022. And that makes sense from a business perspective, because you look at it right now, they're the industry leaders and they're just in coast mode. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think, like, with technology moving the way it can, the
console, no, the console's selling itself, right? And if you release it early, you're cutting into your own bottom line, which is bad for business. You know about analytics and you know about business. So why at this point, when you're making the most money that you've made off of the hardware, because generally you're not making a lot, but you know, further into the generation, you're making more money, you're still selling consoles. It's not like it's trending at a spike down. So why would you cut into your own bottom line?
Let me answer your question with the first hour of Brad Sam's testimony. Okay. And the reason I would try to come out in March 2020, I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, do I think they will? I actually don't. But to answer your question, why would they? Because Brad just basically gave the best a testimony that I've heard in a long time, to see Microsoft is coming out guns firing, blazing, and they're coming out with technology that Sony can't combat. So the only way you can actually try to do that is the old 360 tactic, and that is come out before your competitor. So I think that holds some water. Plus, we do have metrics that show that consoles sell via the Switch, right? And software right now. We never had 10, 12 games coming up between January and April of AAA status like we do now.
I don't think PlayStation's really worrying about the power narrative. I think it's Microsoft that's worrying about it. People get caught up in the whole, 2013 scenario where the PlayStation was marginally more powerful, 1080p bull crap.
Yep.
But right now, I don't think PlayStation's worrying about it. If they were, they would rush out the power. And then we're hearing rumors of this 8 teraflop console, and it's just they're worrying about their first party software, like the games, right?
I'm saying to you, Salt, I don't think it is a power thing. I agree with you. I actually think the thing is it's what have you done for me lately? And I think the fact of the matter is I don't know if Sony can combat what Microsoft is going to launch in 2020. So the only way is not to fight. They're not going to be able to beat them in power. We already know that the Anaconda, if we want to believe the specs that are out there, we're talking 8 to 10 versus 12. They're already going to lose that. The only thing they can do is they want to redeem that 100 million people that they have, because they've already bought into the PS4 ecosystem and have the games. So how do you do that? You launch your system earlier, get all your PS4 million people that are out there now, as many as you can, to buy because they have all those games invested on that ecosystem. And then no matter what Microsoft combatants with their Power, xCloud, etc., you've already got your customer locked in. That's my only thought process. And you add insult to injury, Nintendo's gone ahead and paved the way to show that you can release a console in March.
So, you know how Sony keeps their customers in the fold? If some way or another they announce backwards compatibility, and they sell this idea that it's going to be a locked ecosystem for the time being. That sells it to the customer already, because if Xbox is doing all these multiple SKUs, they're going, you know, xCloud this and xCloud that and blah blah blah, and the consumer just wants that traditional experience in with their hardware. You sell to your customers that you currently have in the 100 million plus, it'll be more than that, and you say, hey, you could stay here. We have backwards compatibility. We have an extremely good lineup of first party titles that aren't questioned right now, because they're all question marks right now for Xbox, because these new developers have to put out product, you know. So
well, I think we both made a good case. I'm actually interested to hear what Brad thinks about both scenarios me and Salt painted.
Well, if I'm gonna pick no, you guys raised
no, you don't have to pick a side. It's more just your talking points, Brad.
Brad, feel free to pick a side, my
Mooch's right shirt's in the mail, by the way, Brad.
Yeah, I think the thing is, at this point, right, the hardware specs of both consoles are more than likely pretty close to finalized. They have to be this far along. I think we can probably agree with that. And I still go back to the idea of, we already know that they're going to do 4K, probably at least 60 frames per second. Candidly, once you get beyond that, what's the point?
Right.
Like you say, oh, we do 98 and Microsoft does 87. We're super
you can't get 4K or 60 frame per second right. Exactly. So, you know, at this point, that's what I'm saying. So is Sony concerned about what Microsoft's offering besides power?
Well, the biggest thing Sony has going for it is that it has a very large, very loyal fan base. And they will be able to upsell or resell to them at this point the consoles, because it makes sense. If you have a PlayStation, buy the next gen PlayStation, especially if you bought digital games, because they all come with you. The key that you bring up, though, is that backwards compatibility, because God bless the engineer over at Sony who's got to rework that Cell CPU to make that thing play on current generations, because that is rough. Now, it's not as big of a deal probably from PS4 to PS5, but that is the big thing, because as an Xbox gamer, especially when we talk about all digital platforms, when you go forward, it's not a good thing for me to go buy a PlayStation, because it's not like Apex Legends is going to move with me, or PUBG or Forza. It's not going to move over there because it's a digital thing. Now, you have the same thing with a disc too, but backwards compatibility hasn't really been a thing, at least at extreme scales, like it has been this generation. So it goes back to IP and infrastructure and your platforms, because the hardware is just ubiquitous. I don't think Sony would launch early because they think they have a hardware advantage, because I find that narrative very hard to believe, knowing that Microsoft has a gaming platform in the cloud that can render graphics. This is the other thing that blows my mind. Microsoft, starting this month, is entering a private preview for its enterprise customers. Let me explain. Let me just run this by you guys. Microsoft is putting into a preview program. It's called Azure Remote Rendering. What it allows you to do is to render 3D graphics in the cloud and stream them to any device. Right now, they're using the HoloLens. What does that sound like? That is xCloud. Microsoft is figuring out how to render, or they've already figured out how to render this stuff in the cloud at higher fidelity than local hardware will ever be able to do. So if Sony launches with a slightly better spec, Microsoft can just kind of laugh and be like, all right, we'll just render this shit in Azure and it'll blow them out of the water. Like that's the biggest difference. And that's what I mean from a technology perspective, is Microsoft is testing this stuff with enterprise customers. When it's ready for gamers, it's going to be, you won't know it if they do it right, which I think they will do. You won't know that you're streaming, rendering from Azure. You'll just be like, God damn, that ray tracing is incredible. Like, how are they doing this on a console that's 2 years old? The one thing I heard from somebody, and this is my favorite sentence, they said, with xCloud, your console will get better without spending more money.
You know, Brad, the funny thing is, I have a podcast on Saturdays called Next Podcast, and we have
Shameless
a panel.
plug.
Everybody plug their podcast. So
We have we have a panel member named the Don, okay, and he is an indie developer, and he's developing his own game. And we were talking about the future and ray tracing, and it was funny that you brought it up because he was like, I believe that's going to be an xCloud like streaming solution when it comes down to it with the next series of hardware. And of course, you know, me, him, and the rest of the panel, we got into this discussion going back and forth about whether it would be better with the hardware, you know, putting the power underneath the hood for that kind of thing. And it's, you know, I hope that Don's watching right now because Brad just agreed with you, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I think it makes sense from what he's saying, but Brad, do you not think that people take the cloud stuff and Azure with a grain of salt, given that they promised a lot of that stuff with the Xbox One prematurely, and so far what they delivered was kind of a scaled down Crackdown multiplayer?
So there's a bunch of things there. One, Microsoft has been working on this game streaming platform, I think, since 2013. This isn't something they're like, we're going to do this last year. This has been, they actually showed it off at an internal company meeting when Steve Ballmer was doing his all hands on deck meetings at the Seattle, whatever the dome up there when it still existed. So this isn't something new, and they think they figured out the latency issue. And so I agree. What they did with Crackdown 3 was not their best look for this. It absolutely wasn't. But at the same time, I don't think this is actually like a direct one-to-one relationship with what we saw with Crackdown versus the streaming platform, because they're two similar ideas, but I believe that they were fundamentally executed differently, if that makes sense. And I think the path that they took with Crackdown is not the path that they are using to go forward, but they hyped it up so much for so many years. They're like, well, crap, it's not like we can't not ship this.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, they did kind of like, that's what I worry about. I also kind of think that with some of the streaming stuff, right? Like game streaming, even though I'm positive Microsoft and Google and all that, they'll do it better than it has been done before. I just think that there's so many people that had negative experiences or no experiences with it. Like I've tried PlayStation Now before, and I don't have the best internet. I wasn't even really allowed to play it. The couple times that I actually was able to load up a game, it was very laggy and kind of pixelated. And so I think a lot of people have those experiences. And so I think that cloud streaming games is going to be a tough sell for a little while for a lot of people. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, do you think that's going to be a tough sell to people as well?
It is. I mean, it's, oh God, remember, was it Don Matrick was like, oh yeah, if you're in a submarine, just buy an Xbox 360 or whatever. Yeah. There is, you are absolutely right, because if you don't have great internet, if you don't have that fast bandwidth and all that stuff, it could be a challenge. I honestly believe that Microsoft has thought through those. They have to have. They would be nuts to be like, okay, this is an always on. The only way this ever works is if you're connected to our Azure service. Now, granted, anybody can connect to Azure because there's regions on every single continent. They're opening up more literally in South Africa. I think this year they're opening to it. Like, everybody's close to a data center. The question is, do you have good enough internet? That's a great question. I don't know what their backfall is, but they would be insane to say like, nah, you just can't play. Like that narrative doesn't make sense from what Microsoft's been showing lately.
Yeah, see, and the thing that I worry about also going forward is like I play a lot of multiplayer stuff, right? So what we see a lot with this cloud streaming stuff that we see even from Google and the play, a lot of it is single player stuff, right? That maybe doesn't require as much sort of detail when it comes to input lag and things like that. I worry about like the multiplayer one. I know we're going to have hardware for a while to come yet, but I still worry about that. And I also worry about like what happened with Crackdown. I paid very close attention to how they handled the multiplayer. And because they have that destruction in there, maybe that had something to do with why you couldn't team up with your friends in a lobby. Like they can't have somebody from, the UK team up with somebody from Africa, because it wouldn't work. They wouldn't be, you know what I'm saying? It's like that worries me as well. Because that means you're only going to be able to party up with possibly people in the same area as you. Like, is that a concern as well, or do you foresee them figuring out a way past all that?
I very much think they have. There's a technology Microsoft has, and I can't remember the name of it. It's like Cosmo DB or something crazy. It's an enterprise product. Microsoft, I think, can understand and deal with the latency and that server issue better than anybody. And I suspect what they will do is that when you go and join a party, it will just, you all log on to the same data center region.
Yeah,
is how it will work. So like if you're hosting a party and you're on South Carolina's east region, when everybody joins your party, no matter where they are in the world, that's the region they're joining. And that's just how it's going to work. Now, they might be smarter than that and know how to do it across the ponds. That is super technical and something that, again, they have to deal with. But I don't think that they would be going forward with this if they didn't have a good solution to work around it.
Yeah, interesting. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Just get a second job if you can't get good internet.
Well, no, I mean, like
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
if you don't have a good internet, we got a console for you.
Yeah, we got a console for you.
I still have my 360. You know what I mean? There's not much I can do about it. It's just, I think
a lot of the stuff is very interesting, but let's be honest, the hardcore and the tech savvy are the ones that are in the know and are kind of like figuring this out. And I see people are still kind of confused about it right now. So it's up to Microsoft to explain all this stuff as it goes on. What was it, the Maverick? If that comes out, they're gonna have to explain that, break it down, and then again at E3 whenever they announce or show the specs or anything like that. It's gonna be a lot of explaining, and I think that Microsoft is just trying to do a lot. It's going on, and a lot of it is really cool. But for the simpler stuff and the basic stuff that hey, I just want a game and I know what's happening, they're looking at PlayStation.
Fox, I am so glad you said that. First off, we all know about Xbox, Microsoft kind of like explaining themselves.
It's kind of spooky sometimes, man.
It's always a fun time. But Brad, I do have my second question that I wanted to ask you now. I believe me and you, we're both like kind of like Microsoft fans. I mean, I had the Zune HD, I had multiple Windows phones. I
just got rid of my Windows phone. So, like, I've got you beat. I was rocking out with no apps, no nothing, man. Dude, I have my Groove service.
I had the Liquid Cool 950 XL. Okay, all right, love that phone. But Brad, we all know when it comes down to it, Microsoft and Xbox being a branch of Microsoft, they always have this. They always kind of see deeper into the future than the consumer does. And you see what's going on with Game Pass and, trying to get games on multiple devices. I think you can hear and see in the chat that some people are definitely concerned about this and everything like that. Brad, do you think that Microsoft and Xbox has kind of like realized that they see far ahead and they kind of like hold it back? Do you think this is the perfect time coming up? Do you think that they finally hit the right time to announce something new that will catch on with gamers out there, man?
The thing that we have to take into consideration here is there is a massive change to how console gaming has historically worked. It used to be you go to Best Buy, you buy your Nintendo 8-bit console, you buy the big cartridge, you slide it in, slam the lid shut, and blow on it if it doesn't work, and then you just play on that little TV right in front of you. What we are moving towards is gaming everywhere. And so what I think Microsoft is trying to do is give as much runway as they can to explain their position in the market, and to your point about how they see the market evolving. And that might be why they're willing to talk about it now, because they know that as the generation approaches, the narrative is going to get more complex. And they need the longest amount of time to educate that consumer, because they're not just going to go buy a box and put a game in it. They might go buy a box, download a game, play it on their phone, play it on their TV, play it on their tablet or something like that. And they need the longest runway possible to explain how gaming is going to evolve. And that's why they're willing to talk about it now.
Okay.
Brett, I was really curious because Xbot I know is a big Halo fan as well.
Woohoo!
Do you have any information about the new Halo? Like, what's going on with that? What can we look forward to? Is it what do you mean when it's going to be possibly more RPG like? Like what do you got? What do you got for us, man?
So I would love to be able to tell you exactly what that means, but candidly, I don't fully know the narrative. All I know is that the people who, if you jump back to E3 before last year, I tweeted out, I was like, hey, they're going to announce a new Halo game. It's going to be called Xbox Infinity. Uh-oh, you guys still there?
Yeah,
we're here.
I think my headset's about to die. It's probably going to kick over to my phone. But anyways, so the people that told me that said, hey, they're looking to add more RPG elements to the platform. So that is what I know. And that I say that with a high degree of confidence that they are trying to expand how you interact and play Halo. So, read into it what you want. That is what I know. I wish I could tell you that this explicitly means skill trees or side narratives or increased lore or multiple characters. I candidly don't know, but we're going to learn more here, and hopefully not too distant future.
Is Master Chief going to be a woman now? Do you know that?
Yeah, I have no idea, man. No idea. And the one thing, like, I get so many DMs about gaming stuff, like random games, and the one thing I want to make clear is, like, I know Microsoft's hardware narratives extremely well and their services narratives extremely well. If you ask me what the plot of the next Forza Horizon game is going to be, I am completely useless to you.
It's going to have a festival.
I'll let you in on that real quick. It's drive really fast, cross the finish line first. That's
I'm really good at hitting the walls.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just think people are curious because you did mention the Infinity thing, which anybody knows that, like, anytime you hear stuff, sometimes, especially when it comes to software, they can change really quick. And so, like that stuff can happen. Do you think, Brad, VR will come to the next Xbox? Because, it's like, I'm an avid, it's basically the only thing I use on PlayStation anymore is the PlayStation VR. Do you think they'll eventually do something VR related? See, I've heard that they're working on VR, like a Halo VR type thing, but like they're pretty stern with no, they're not going to do anything VR. What do you think? Will that eventually come to the next Xbox or no?
So it's a good question. The thing to keep in mind is Microsoft has a VR platform. It's called Windows Mixed Reality. Like, I have these headsets at my house, and they're pretty good. At one point, they were planning on bringing it to the Scorpio. That was in their documents. Like, I have them somewhere that says, hey, VR is a part of this. And they said, nah, which I actually think was honestly probably not a bad move, because they had a really sour taste in their mouth of bundling things that the Kinect, honestly. Like, that was their expected play to be the difference maker, and that was just a waste of money, overhead, and it made their console more expensive. Will it be on the next gen? I can't explicitly say yes, but what I can say is that Microsoft is pushing forward with their mixed reality platform that is on the PC, which to me makes a logical parallel that the next Xbox generation, very similarly, very similar products.
Okay, so you think that it's not dead in the water? They could actually kind of revive that, right?
Oh, I don't think they ever. They just decided not to ship it. I don't think it's like they work on this stuff. I'm almost positive they still have Xboxes that can run a VR. It's just they decided not to ship it because it wasn't the right time. They were worried about the cost overhead, and they needed to start selling consoles, which they weren't doing for a while.
Okay.
So will it be next gen? I haven't explicitly heard that it is. but it wouldn't surprise me that if you could take a Windows mixed reality headset and plug it into an Xbox and get a good experience.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, everybody knows by now that the technology's come a long way. I mean, I have the PSVR, and I've had a few friends of mine tell me that now you have a PC that's capable of it, you should definitely get, an Oculus, etc. But the fact of the matter is, though, Brad, I think that Microsoft has come to the conclusion that these types of things like a VR headset, Kinect, these accessories need to be purchased post out of the box, not something that comes forced in the box. They learned their lesson the hard way in 2013. I think when it comes down to it, forcing people to buy PSVR or forcing people to buy an Xbox VR, that's a tough sell. I think it's still a niche market. I think it's neat. I don't know if you remember the days, but the days when there was an arcade, there was always the 50-cent machines that everybody played, and then there was the $1.75 machine for the amazing experience in the back of the arcade, right? And it was cool. It was definitely something to experience. But after you experienced it for 2-3 times, and then your buddy was like, yo, Brad, did you check that out back there? You're like, yeah, I played it last weekend. Not doing that again. I don't want to spend another $1.75. I got the experience. Like, for me personally, with PSVR, no matter how great the game is, it's an experience. And after 2-3 hours, I'm kind of done with it, Yep. So I think Microsoft has seen the metrics. They've seen the analytics. They know what's going on. And I think they're going to let third party kind of play that role moving forward. I don't think Microsoft wants to get into the VR business. And Phil said that during his Giant Bomb interview with Gertzman and those guys about 1.5 years ago. He's like, until you're completely 100% untethered and you feel like you have full 360 and the battery pack is into the helmet and worked in that way through engineering, he's like, you just don't feel that immersion. You don't feel like you're involved. And for the dollar amount, I don't think Microsoft wants to get involved. And frankly, as a gamer, I've tried VR. I get it. If someone says they enjoy it, I have nothing to combat in that with. But I could say to you, do you enjoy it on a 7-day period like we all like to game for 2 to 3 hours a day? Or is it something you do once or twice a month for 3 hours and enjoy the experience? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. And what I was going to say is to do VR right is not cheap. It's not.
Right, exactly.
Because you need that exactly what you just said. You need that headset that's on your head, and you don't have to worry about walking 6 feet and having to rip the cord out and rip your console or PC off its perch.
I mean, it all plays a role, and I think that's the one thing holding VR back. I'm not saying VR won't progress as we move forward. It's getting better and better. But the market, it's funny, people that are VR fans and the people that are in the VR market as far as business folks, they keep throwing out how the numbers are going up. Well, your number started so low. Yeah, of course it's going up, but it's still not to the point where it's something you have investors saying, I need to get in on that. You even see some of the people that were investing in Oculus back in the day, like Cliffy B and all these other guys that were big in the industry putting money into that. They're kind of quiet on it now, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, Cliffy's gone. Or
well, I'm saying, no, he's out. Believe me, he still tweets. But I mean, like you just don't hear that huge push anymore.
Yeah, the hype for VR has died down, definitely.
Yes.
I like the mixed reality stuff because that has both AR and VR, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, if anything, I can see that becoming a thing with Xbox later on in the future or down the line or being integrated somehow. But do you think they'll ever do the HoloLens and the Xbox together in any way?
It's can they? Absolutely. Will they? I don't know. It's I wish that I'm just gonna go text Phil Spencer and be like, hey Phil, what are you doing? I think it's one of the things we got to wait and see how this market matures. I think because VR is a niche. It's a really cool one. Like one of the things I do with my headset is I fire up Universe Sandbox and my kid's learning about planets at school and she can go explore the Mars or whatever they're working on. Yeah. But it's good, but again, in those micro instances of 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Right. One of the reasons why some of the Nintendo Wii had troubles was because some people just wanted to sit down and game. They didn't want to be jumping all over their living room.
Yeah.
And that's why Wii Sports was played to death. But the Nintendo Wii had a really big attachment problem, meaning people buying other games because they didn't want to get up and jump around. They liked bowling, and that was it. It was neat.
Yeah.
Well, that's true though. I mean, it was neat. But yeah, it's like some of those fads and stuff like that really kind of wear out fast. But I like VR. I think it's cool. I obviously don't think it's something you can do long term, but I still do it regularly and enjoy it as kind of a separate thing, like an immersive thing. And I really like, since I prefer Xbox, would have loved some sort of VR world with Halo or Gears or Forza. It seems like they've got some IPs really set up that could take advantage of VR, and I hope that they would do that at some point. I was kind of bummed when they decided not to. With the X. So,
Crappy, are you scared of crashing when you're looking at your car seats and your and your steering wheel?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, that has happened before. I've sort of gotten a little bit better with that, but yeah, like I really hope that they do that. Brad, what do you have any ideas about any new studios or rumors that studios that Microsoft might be interested in?
No, I would love to be able to tell you a laundry list of stuff, but that information is a much different caliber than finding out what the specs are of the next console, because it has financial ramifications, and it also has Wall Street implications, which means that they keep a whole different can of worms in the way for that type of stuff. And so I don't know what studios they're going to be buying. I do know that they are giving a lot more money to the studios that they have bought to make sure that they have the resources available to make sure that they for launching games on time, because that's a major problem with game studios, right? It's hard to build a game. And then as much as I wanted to love Anthem was announced with a ship date and you have to hit it, and then you get it launched and it's not a great experience. And Microsoft doesn't want to have that happen with the launch titles for the next generation stuff. And so they're making sure that they have the resources available to hit their timelines and to come out with quality games, not games that are just at a point, a milestone to be released.
Yeah, so they're not just a lot of people assume that because they have Game Pass that they might just kind of rush games out to get the content in there, and obviously that's not the case. Even though some people might think Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, and Crackdown 3 were less than stellar outings, do you think they're going to really let them invest and stew in the pot a little bit? Like, I don't expect to hear anything like we heard about Obsidian. They have like 4 teams or whatever, but most of them are doing Outer Worlds, and that's going to be like a multiplat anyway. So I wouldn't expect anything from them. Or is there any studios that we might surprise? Obviously, Ninja Theory might be one where we get some kind of announcement this E3. Have you heard anything about a studio being ready to announce a game?
No. The one thing that I can tell you that Microsoft is scared of right now is they're scared of Game Pass being associated with B-roll. Like, they don't want it to be the straight to what do they call it? Straight to DVD movies.
Yeah,
they don't want Game Pass to become
Aladdin 2.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which sadly it is. I mean, if you look at the 3 out of the 4, all 60-something Metacritic, and then Forza Horizon being the only one that realistically people kind of set aside. Most people are just going to assume. Like, I mean, Gears is going to change that, obviously, but they've got to be wary about releasing some of these mid-tier games. And you look at some of the developers they picked up, In Exile, and who was the one that did We Happy Few? Yeah, those guys, they're not exactly known for putting out, like, really well-crafted games. So, like, I can understand where they're coming from with that. Like, you have to be very careful. That's why I believe they're not going to release a Forza Motorsport this year, even though they had been doing that every other year. They're not going to just rush that out. I'm sure they could have, but the last one had some issues, and they're still working on making that one better. So I do think they're going to do that. What are your thoughts? Or anybody?
Well, I'll add to that. I think Crap asked a great question to Brad, but one thing, Brad, we've been talking about for a long time, and I'm just wondering your opinion on it too, is don't you think Microsoft could have had their cake and ate it too? Since nobody else is offering anything like Game Pass right now, why wouldn't they have kept their Xbox games exclusive to the console for 3 to 6 months? Say 6 months. You can put whatever you want. You can put 30 days if you want, and then have it go everywhere after that. Just like a little, kind of and I don't care. I'm asking the question from a business standpoint. I frankly don't care. I'm saying to you that if I was sitting at the table, if this panel right now that's on this podcast was all Microsoft executives, I would turn around to somebody who said day and date. I'd say, well, what's the harm in 30 to 60 days wait or 3 months? Why not? We can double dip here, because the issue is that I felt like when they put day and date, and this all kind of has the same thing with Game Pass, is that mediocre feel. You still give that title, if you're working for Rare or you're working for 343 or Coalition, they all come out with the very corporate answer right now. As long as people are playing the game, we're very happy.
Absolutely, they are happy though.
That's like saying to anybody who walked out a test, "Hey, how'd you do on your test?" "I got an 85, and that's pretty good." Well, right? But what they wanted was 100, right? They wanted 100. So what I would like to see my game sell like the Dickens, and then all of a sudden kill in Game Pass too.
If you do that though, you have if you do that over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like the gamer is gonna look at it like, well, I can grab this game now, or I can wait 30 days and it's in my subscription. And then
Xbox, there's people paying $100 to play a game 3 days early. So I don't buy one word you're saying.
I think it devalues what you're trying to do at the apex of the company right now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that was my second. Go ahead.
Like, Game Pass is the focal point right now. If that's what they're doing right now. The subscription services, you see it all around the entertainment industry, Disney. Like, what's their focal point? Is it movies? The movies are making them billions of dollars, but no, their focal point is their subscription service.
Right. So when Disney,
making money,
when Disney starts their subscription service very soon, when Star Wars 9 comes out, is it going to be on the subscription service the same day it's in the movie theater?
Well, it's supposed to be mainly for television shows.
Can't they double dip? The same way?
So
you're saying what you're saying. It's only different because Microsoft already set the new rule. So now for you, it's different. If they never said that in the begin with, and they came out with 3 months, you wouldn't know any better.
Movies come out in theaters, right? That's where they come out. That's where you can see these day and date. It's different for video games. Video games can be consumed by the masses day one, and you don't have to go to a theater.
I know what you're saying.
Partake of it. It's totally different.
I don't think I wouldn't use the word totally. It's different. It's not totally different because you're saying that because now you know the new norm.
Well,
if that new norm wasn't out, it wouldn't be totally different because you wouldn't know that. If they came out and said 3 months after these go into Game Pass, guess what? A lot of people would do what you guys said. They'd wait and pay the $10 to be a part of Game Pass, which would be uber successful.
I still think that you're missing the point here. It doesn't matter. They don't.
Well, it doesn't
matter.
But I mean,
they don't care about game sales if you're subscribing to Game Pass. It actually is better for them to have you in the fold for Game Pass.
So why do all these games that are coming out now have an Ultimate Edition that let me pay $100 or $120 to play the game 3 days earlier?
Well, you're talking about multiplats right now.
I'm talking about games. We're talking about.
But you're talking about multiplats that have an independent publisher that isn't publishing on their own hardware either, or their own platform.
It doesn't matter. It's gonna go to Game Pass regardless.
Mooch, you're talking about like if Gears of War, the next one, Ultimate, it comes out early, right? Or they have an early one. I would get that because that's
exactly.
I'm looking forward to it, so I'm the hardcore.
Right, so they can double dip. That's my point. You just proved my point. You're the reason hardcore. Why trying to get them.
But who gets for Anthem? Sorry, I don't want to cut you out. But for Anthem, how do you get access to the week early access? It's on what is it? EA Origins.
Access.
It's Origins Premier, right, on PC.
On PC, yeah.
Which is a subscription service. So that proves the point there that it
doesn't prove the point. They're just
they want you to be in the subscription service, and that's why they're giving you benefits, right?
It's not just that, it's the norm because that's what they set. I'm going back and saying, why didn't they make it so that what I'm trying to do is give relevance to the console still, and then also give a great round of applause to your streaming service. Both are going to do outstanding. The problem here is now you have people saying, nah, not going to buy Crackdown. I'll just do it in Game Pass. I know they don't care. I get they don't care. And I get that they're doing okay with it. But hardcore people that love Crackdown that we see on Twitter every day, and Brad, you know this, you see them, the hardcore Crackdown fans are out there. They would have gladly paid the $60 to get the Steelbook cover and own the game. And then all of us, like myself, that's not a Crackdown fan, that's enjoying the game immensely, I would have enjoyed it on Game Pass, and I'm a Game Pass customer. They could have now you have somebody not buying that day one for $60, just
then they're not that hardcore that you were just talking about, Mooch. At the end of the day, the hardcore will buy it physically.
Yeah,
no problem.
that's where I was getting at, and that's why I pointed out Gears, because that's one of my favorite games on Xbox. So I would go out of my way to get that. But my friend who doesn't like Gears that much, but also wants to play with me, will get it on Game Pass, and they got them hooked because
guess what,
once
guys?
they see all those other games, they're not leaving.
Right,
the
but between the number 1 and 100, there's a lot of other people in between. So you just mentioned the 1 and the 100. There's a lot of people that are in between that would say, you know what? I like Gears. Guess what? I'm going to go buy it. I don't feel like waiting. I'm not as diehard as Fox.
So
I'll go buy it. Right? There's all those people in between.
The number one thing that you can point to an example of this, why these subscription services, it doesn't matter either way. It's like if you look at Netflix, why are they dropping Avengers and all these name brand movies into Netflix relatively very soon after they launch, and they go into
relatively
Blu-ray
very soon after. That's what I just said.
No, but
I just said
if it was important for their bottom line for sales only, they wouldn't do it ever.
I mean, I think I made a point. I think you just proved it. That very soon thereafter is what I'm saying. I didn't say 6 years later. I said 30 days, 60 days, a month, 3 months.
Mooch,
that's not for me to make a decision.
Mooch, check this out. The way that Xbox is looking at this, if you want to buy the physical, you can. If you have a subscription, they put their subscription.
I have a hamburger for you for $10 or a hamburger for you for $60.
No, dude,
like it's the same hamburger.
Brad on the panel said this. He said about Microsoft Xbox, Microsoft a services type company.
I get it.
Not a hardware at heart.
I get
it. Stuff like that. So when it comes down to it, if you're taking part in their service, they're going to give you day and date with their first party.
I get it.
It undermines everything they're trying to do with Game Pass.
It undermines it as of today. You said. It does not undermine it from before
they're trying to sell it. What did they sell Game Pass on? Day and date with our first party exclusives. You take that away. Where's the value? Where's the value there? Because you tell your customers, hey, that day and date shit that we talked about, that's going away. It's like, why am I in Game Pass?
There's still a value to
That's
it.
That's not what I said. I'm saying they didn't say day and date is what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that what you know now. Though. I know. I'm saying if they didn't, you guys don't understand.
What are we gonna do? Take a mind wipe from
apparently?
Men in Black?
Apparently nobody's getting. I'm asking Brad a question. I was asking the panel a question. Hypothetically, wouldn't it have been a better move to do that, to give the console some relevance moving forward so you could double dip? I was just asking you a question. I said you have to ignore the fact that they came out and said that. I said it 3 times. That's all I'm saying. Yes, I understand.
Well, hypothetically, I'd like to own the Phoenix Suns and be a millionaire, but that's not going to come to fruition, and I can't mind wipe myself.
TNT, man.
You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. The services, they made the promises, and it's just that's what it is. It just they can't go back in time.
Let's never talk about anything hypothetical again. I'm writing it down right now.
No, hey,
podcast delete.
No, Mooch. We could talk about hypotheticals if they have to do with future things. Future things, my dude.
Okay, there you go. Hypotheticals are off, folks. No more. I appreciate it. Moving forward, on to things we know about.
Oh my God.
Hold on.
Right.
Hey, you know what? Look, I've already kept Brad super long.
You're fine.
It's been a great show. I want to do some outros. Brad, can you tell the people where they can find you? I've got all the links down below where they can get you, but maybe you can explain to them what you do for those places and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so super high level. The best place to find me is honestly probably just on YouTube or Twitter. That's where I post a lot of the gaming relevant news. But my career is I run editorial for a publishing company called Blue Whale Web Media Group, and we have an enterprise channel, which is Petri.com. We have a consumer channel, which is Thurrott.com. But all the gaming news ends up on YouTube. So, find me there. Find me on Twitter. I'm super engaged. Conversation, guys. There's the thing to keep in mind. It's a great time right now to be a gamer. There's a lot of good stuff coming from Microsoft. There's a lot of good stuff coming from Sony and Nintendo, and it's only getting better. So at the end of the day, just be happy you're a gamer, and things are looking good for everybody.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Good words, man. We really appreciate you taking your time out to join us tonight. Mooch, you're here. What do you got going on, Mooch? What's going on, man?
We've got Crossfire. We got a lot of snow in New York, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It sucks. But no, nonetheless, we got Crossfire 7 p.m. Eastern time, the Mooch 78, and then we've got MNC on Craps channel. 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. Should be a good time.
Absolutely. We also got Salty. What's going on with you, man?
Hey, we got the Saltiest Gaming Podcast tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking about hypotheticals all over the place, so stay tuned for that. The whole show's hypothetical. Okay, so it's hypothetically, we're going to be going on at 9 o'clock Eastern.
Oh my God.
It was awesome. I love Mooch. We love going back and forth.
It makes the show so much better.
Yeah. So yeah, you can.
Love it.
Hypothetically speaking.
Anyways, yes.
Yeah. You can catch the Saltiest Podcast tomorrow night. And Foxy, what do you got going on?
I'm about to buy this book that Brad wrote over here online right now. Yeah, he didn't plug that. But anyway, besides that, I just want to say check out my YouTube channel. I talk there more than I did tonight, believe it or not. And
was everybody was talking and yelling. Yeah, it's crazy.
It was front seat. I was like front row seat, and it was awesome. You guys had great discussion. I loved it. But besides that, you can follow me on Twitter. I'll chat with you guys on there as well. And then, yeah, like I said, my YouTube channel. So I'll see you guys next week. Thank you to everybody in the chat for hanging out with us.
Absolutely. And Xbot4372, what's going on, man?
brother, man, it's 448. All right,
448.
Remember,
the mini cowboy back in the day.
I was gonna say I never dressed up as a cowboy either.
Your grandma dressed you up.
Oh my goodness. Well, on that note, I do have to say, Brad, I had an absolute blast talking games with you, talking to Xbox.
This was great, guys.
It was an awesome show, man. It was awesome show. But guys, you can check out the next podcast on my channel. Saturday, we will have a special guest. A true gamer will be in the house. Mrs. L Boogie will be joining us this Saturday. It's going to be a hell of a show. But not only that, I will be there. Crossfire on the panel on Friday. I'm pretty much everywhere, guys. Everywhere.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you guys. Game on. Have a great week. And we appreciate you guys spending some time with us. We'll catch you next time. Later.
Peace.